Radio Network.
Okay.
And KFAN. That's KFAN.com. 1 minute. No, let's go 2 minutes and 1 second past the hour of 3 o'clock. That's Central Standard Time. It is a Friday edition of the Bumper to Bumper program on a, almost slightly snowy Friday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, at least here in lovely St. Louis Park. I am the host of the program. I am the afternoon aardvark. My name is Dan Barreiro. Guardsy is the producer of the program, and we are going, my sources say, only until 6 tonight.
That's right.
We got Golden Gopher men's hockey.
We do.
Big showdown series. Is it Michigan State?
The Spartans on the road.
6 o'clock.
Big
That's one. Big package? No, what's the Johnny Athletic?
Boy.
That's quite a package.
That is a big package.
Big package.
That is a nice package.
Oh, it's a nice package.
Well, there's multiple.
There's also a big one?
Boy, this is a big package.
How many packages?
I like that package.
Oh, 3. Any more?
He did talk about a small package like a year ago just for the bit, and I don't think I ever grabbed it.
Oh, okay.
I have it somewhere. I just have never added it to the button bar.
I think, is this the first time we've ever been preempted? Because the hockey community will love this. Have we ever been preempted for Golden Gopher hockey?
We have been.
Oh, we have been?
Yeah.
Oh, I just don't remember it. Okay.
Not often.
A lot,
it's
but
typically on a Friday.
Yeah.
You may have been gone for one of them. There might have been one in December that we did.
Possible.
So we pop them on the big stick every once in a while.
Is that what we call
the big stick?
The big stick?
Yeah, I don't know. I just made that up now.
The big stick.
Yeah,
okay.
the big one.
Okay. All right. I'll accept that.
The big package.
We have a lot planned today in the next 3 hours, including a 5:30 visit with Lavelle E. Neal III, a 4:30 visit with another Friday regular, Ben Gessling. And at 4 o'clock, our good friend Gerald Posner has agreed to join us on a very busy day. He was on Fox News early, CNN later. He's in demand today, and we're lucky enough to have our shot at him as well, scheduled at about 4:02 Central Time to talk about the big news that broke yesterday regarding the president saying we're going to release all the remaining files on the Kennedy, RFK, JFK assassinations, and MLK as well. And Gerald Posner, has been first and foremost a journalist who has covered several of those events, those tragedies, and written about them as well, JFK most notably. And so we thought immediately of him like everybody else is, and we'll see if he's unearthed anything yet, how long it's going to take for all this stuff to come out, and what he thinks it's likely to reveal. All of that scheduled for 4. Now, 3:30 is generally picks with Carl Gerbschmidt.
It's not looking good.
But it is not looking good. Gerby telling the tasteless box of mashed potatoes that he's got no voice today.
He can't talk.
And if you don't have a voice, you can't do radio. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter what your intent is. If no one can hear what you're saying, he must have, I don't know if it's laryngitis, got the flu, whatever the case may be. Or is he not even really telling us the real story?
Or is it some type of gag order?
Well, there are rumors out there that apparently I can't confirm it.
Right.
But there are rumors suggesting that Mr. Gerbschmidt has been, quote unquote, working with the police on the probable arson at Shooter's Showgirls.
How many times do you think we were sent that story this week?
I'm guessing hundreds.
The Gentlemen's Club.
Correct.
That was burned to the ground earlier in the week in where?
So
Elk Mound, Wisconsin.
Now, a man's been charged, but how does that explain why Mr. Gerbschmidt would be working, quote unquote, with the police? What the hell's he got to do with
I don't know.
So we don't know that that's true because he's got lawyers too.
Including his brother.
That's among the rumors out there. So whether he's really got a voice problem or whether there's something a little bit more nefarious, or is it nefarious?
Nefarious.
Whatever it is, he ain't going to be with us at 3:30. So it's going to be you and me doing the picks at 3:30, which I know for the Gerbschmidt fans is a tremendous disappointment.
I think even for me, it's a tremendous. I don't even really care about the picks that much.
Well, we can tighten it up. We don't have to go. We don't have to milk it for quite as long. I think that part's true.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the old days, we used to do. I think this goes back to Chad and Barreiro salad days. We had a guest picker. I think I did that too. Didn't we for a while? Were you involved in that, or was that before you?
That was before my time. You'd have
and it's a pain in the ass.
I know.
And that's why we stopped doing it, because it's hard to get people, and then they're not really that into the bid, and then at some point you just say it's not worth the trouble.
What I remember shortly before I joined the show, because you had done the actual celebrity guest picker for years and years, you also had Common doing fake celebrity guest pickers for a couple of seasons where he would call in and do impressions of people.
I forgot about that. You're right. That's true.
That was short-lived.
Those are the days.
That was short-lived.
Well, I think we found the limitations of the range but that, I think in the beginning we said, but that'll be part of the bit.
Yes.
Bad impressions will be part of the bit too, right?
But then the NFL went to 17-week schedules, and then he had to come up with 17 or 18 different impressions, and I don't think it went that well.
Some people say they've heard Fallness say, nice package. Is that true? Does Fallness have his own version of that?
I don't know. Maybe. It's possible.
Oh, no, I think they're talking about the big stick. They're saying Gargi did not make up the big stick. He heard Fallness say it numerous times. Or maybe he's trying to reel me in a la the Common Man.
No,
so
I wasn't trying to reel him in. I mean, it's a radio term.
It is. It's not. Fallness didn't invent it.
No one owns the term big stick.
I wouldn't think so.
Besides Vasante Shenko, maybe. But in the radio version.
Remember that? Those are the days.
How could I forget? Yeah. In the radio parlance, it's used pretty regularly.
In any case, that's the plan for today. So I think we got a lot of good stuff on the agenda. The Jordan rules. What the hell does that have to do with the price of, is it tea in China? What was that old expression?
Yeah.
Price of tea in China or price of bread in China?
No,
it's price of tea in China.
Yeah.
And maybe that's vaguely out of, fashion, that's something that we shouldn't even be saying out loud. If I get canceled, I'm sorry. I was quoting the expression. In any case, once upon a time, there were these things called the Jordan rules, right? And I think it was the name of the book that Inkstand Wretch Sam Smith, Chicago Tribune, occasional contributor to this show over the years, going back a ways. That was the name of his book on Jordan and the Bulls, right? And the Jordan rules, as I understood them at the time, were sort of unwritten, maybe in part written rules that the Detroit Pistons had to attempt to deal with the phenomenon that was Michael Jordan, right? And still beat the Bulls. And of course, early they did that. They dominated the Bulls. Then ultimately, there was a passing of the torch. That was the occasion where I think the Bulls eliminated Detroit in Detroit. And then remember, there was that famous thing where the game wasn't over and the Pistons, the main players, all left.
They didn't shake hands.
And they walked out, and it was quite a controversy. And it was a sense of, okay, here's the things that you got to do to give yourself the best chance to beat a Michael Jordan team from a schematic standpoint, from a strategic standpoint. I have in my mind another Jordan rule, because when you look back on his run, his magnificent run, and it's now been more than a minute since he's been gone, a lot of people talked about, I remember writing about this issue, the number of superstar players, Hall of Fame players, who had to live with the great player, couldn't win a ring. Great assist man, couldn't win a ring. Tremendous center, battled you to the end, all pro, but couldn't win a ring. And eventually, I think many of those individuals, I'm thinking of guys like Karl Malone, John Stockton, Patrick Ewing,
Charles Barkley,
they were given kind of the benefit of the doubt. It's like, well, yeah, but one guy beat him. That's because one guy is the best player who ever lived. So we're not going to be quite as hard on they couldn't win the big one in those cases because of what that guy, Michael Jordan, represented. Another kind of Jordan rule. So are we at a point or close to a point where the same does or should apply to the National Football League playoffs? In other words, there's been a lot of debate already this week. And actually, this was going into the Buffalo-Baltimore game, for example. Which of those quarterbacks needs to win more? And which of those quarterbacks going forward needs to get that albatross off his back of can't win the big one? Was it Jackson or is it Buffalo quarterback?
Josh Allen.
Josh Allen.
Yep.
Right? And you're going to hear, you have heard a lot about that now. Josh Allen, sooner or later, he's got to do it. He has to beat Mahomes. Here's what I'm proposing and asking. Does he? Obviously, he'd like to. Obviously, it would be a great feather in his cap. But is Mahomes approaching or already at the point where we almost have to give a similar pass to a number of other magnificent players and quarterbacks that we gave some great NBA players as it pertained to the inability to take that last step and beat Michael Jordan? I think we should talk about it. I don't you? I think because I don't know. Look, if your starting QB plays horribly against Mahomes, then I guess maybe this becomes moot and you say it doesn't apply. But if he plays well, I mean, because my recollection a year ago, didn't they lose in the last 13 seconds to
one of the times?
Was that last year? I thought it was last year that they lost in the last 13 seconds. So at some point you say, yeah, I mean, you got to be honest and say that he didn't get past Mahomes, didn't win a ring. But Mahomes, it's Mahomes. There's for the last 40 years, it's Brady and Mahomes,
right?
And that's it. That's the end of the discussion, right? In terms of winners, in terms of guys who always seem to find a way to get the job done, and rings, they're it. And just because you can't beat them, and maybe, I guess you could add Andy Reid to it if you'd like, in the case of Kansas City, you say, I'm not going to pound away the way I might otherwise if a number of different quarterbacks were knocking them off. You know what I'm saying?
Right. If they just kept losing random games at random times. But for Josh Allen, it's pretty much you get to the Mahomes part.
That's it.
And even when you play really well and give your team a lead with 13 seconds to go, he somehow still figures out how to beat you. And I don't think they had timeouts either. I
think you're right.
It was crazy how they figured all of that out to lose that game.
I don't know. I'm just throwing it into the mix. I think it's that he's Mahomes, if he's not there already, he's absolutely approaching that particular standing.
The Fan wants to give you a shot to put a grain in your hand with our National Cash Contest. First keyword of the final day this week is green. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword green.
Let me get to some texts via the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line, 64686. Should the Jordan rules apply to great football players, notably, largely, other great quarterbacks that have remarkable statistics and mythic performances, but can't win the big one because Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs have at least been to this point that good? Because for generations, whether it was fair or not, that's how we kind of evaluated the quarterback position. Yeah, he's great, but we're about winning. He didn't win the big one. When's he going to win the big one? Maybe that is unfair in the Mahomes era. Maybe to an extent it was unfair in the Brady/Belichick era. The way I think a lot of people came to believe it was unfair to use it against great NBA players as long as Michael Jordan was in his prime and winning championships, right?
Yeah. You can find comparisons in a lot of different sports.
There's no question.
Like in Tiger's era when he was rolling.
That's it.
How many best players to never win a major were there? It's a little bit different, but Tiger was winning a lot of them.
There's some Joe Montana fans who were offended.
Oh.
And I covered Joe Montana. I know Joe Montana.
You were there for the catch.
I wasn't in any way diminishing Joe Montana. I thought I was pretty specific. I said the last 40 years. Did Joe Montana play in the last 40?
Yeah.
Last 40?
Yeah.
All right, 30.
No. He might have been with the Chiefs in the 30s era.
86. Yeah, I guess you're right. It would be in that range. The most recent generation of quarterbacks,
yes.
It's Brady and Mahomes. Obviously, it can't include Montana because he didn't play for extensive periods at the same time as those two guys, right? That's all. That's all I'm saying. Joe Montana is as good. This isn't a game of who's the best quarterback of all time. No, that's not what I'm saying. It has nothing to do with that. It's how do you go about, do you give more of a pass when there seems to be an all-timer? in whatever the sport is, in this case I was talking about basketball, but we're now talking about football because the playoffs continue this weekend. All the action right here on the Fan.
Yes.
I'm hoping.
Yep.
On Sunday into Sunday evening. That are you willing to be a little bit more compassionate to the way a lot of, I think, NBA insiders ultimately work to Karl Malone and John Stockton and Charles Oakley and
think about those Pacers
Patrick
teams.
Ewing,
Reggie Miller had a run. Like there were guys that were winning
Some
MVPs and coming up against them.
Players,
yes,
there, and I'm more willing to give them a little bit more of a pass because you go, guys, ridiculous. Jordan's ridiculous. Mahomes is, and this isn't me saying Mahomes is the Jordan of all-time football, but let's be honest, Mahomes is absurd, right?
Yes.
No,
and the Chiefs have been unbelievable.
Yes.
Since he took over.
Brady was absurd, although absurd, I think, in some different ways. How he did it, we've talked about that ad nauseum over the years. But Mahomes is in that absurd category. And he still, has he hit 30 yet?
Probably not.
I think he's approaching it. I don't think he's 30 yet. Now, they may end up, we're going to do the picks next segment.
He's 29.
29.
Just turned 29 in September.
Think about it.
He'll be 30 next season.
What is it? Was it 5 or 6 straight AFC title games?
I thought it was 7.
I think it was 7. You're right, 7.
It's the last 7.
It's just, and you watch him now and you go, he looks pretty ordinary there. And then he's got to make that one play, and then he makes it time and time again. And I think it becomes harder to say, well, Jackson's not a winner. The guy in Buffalo is not a winner. Josh Allen, I don't want to have trouble remembering his name. And go down through the list.
Because he's not a winner. He's not a champ.
Must be.
If he had a couple of rings, you'd remember his name.
And there have been, you can go back to, Jackson's performance. And if we'd had more time with Salisbury, I would have asked him this. And you can go, well, he's probably going to be the MVP again, but it is uncanny because he wasn't playing Mahomes a week ago. Was he?
No, he was playing Josh Allen. You go, how can you have a game in which you fumble and throw a pick and you hadn't done that in like 9 years? And this is the game in the postseason. Right.
So, there's stuff that's there, but I just think he's in that Mahomes has put himself in that rarefied air where you almost have to, before you just dismiss and write off any other quarterback as not a winner. Great stats, great talent, can throw the ball 100 yards, can break tackles like a fullback, but he couldn't win the big one. There's guys who don't win the big one, I think I'm going to look differently than if, indeed, again, Buffalo goes to Kansas City and ends up losing, unless he just plays dreadfully. Like I said, maybe if he throws 3 or 4 interceptions.
Right. But that really hasn't been the case when they've matched up all of these times.
Very true.
He's had them in position to win a couple of times. And football's a funny game. Weird things happen in football games. It doesn't always just come down to quarterback play. It does quite a bit. You want to have good quarterback play. Obviously, it's kind of a prerequisite at this time of the year, but he's had some hellaciously bad L's in the playoffs that weren't necessarily his fault.
That's correct. Here's the nugget somebody came up with. This was after Baltimore was eliminated. Lamar Jackson has been in the NFL 7 years. He's 3-5 in the playoffs. Peyton Manning's first 7 years in the NFL, 3-5 in the playoffs. Manning went to the playoffs his 8th year, went 0-1. Manning went to the playoffs his 9th year, went 4-0 and won the Super Bowl. So this was an attempt to defend Jackson, to say, sometimes people forget how long it took Manning, because I remember covering some of those games, and it was easy to scratch that itch. Like, God, he's great, but come on. Where's the grand prize?
And they had a lot of 14-2s mixed in. They had a lot of those Detroit games from this last week mixed in, where they were the number 1 seed or the number 2 seed with a bye.
Yes.
And would end up losing at home. To defend Manning, though, one of those times, it was your guy. Didn't Manning call him the drunken kicker? Gets liquored up.
Yes.
Now, he wasn't drunk to kick it, but he missed it wide left. Like, he drives him into position. Their kicker misses the game. That's legacy-changing stuff.
He's a very vocal guy, is what it was, right? Yeah.
Vanderjack, I think his name was.
That's right.
Mike or Jeff? I can't remember.
One of them.
Not
I think there were 2 or 3 Vanderjacks.
But those were
Yeah.
they took some really tough losses
Yes, they
early
did.
on, and Manning was every bit as Lamar Jackson with MVPs and stats and everything that comes with it. Jordan took a long time to win.
He did. People forget that too. He absolutely did.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah, and he had to basically dethrone Detroit. So again, you could say, well, no, this is the ultimate test. If indeed Buffalo can pull this off, then it's the crowning achievement for that team and for that quarterback. And you've finally taken the last step. I have a hard time writing anybody off in the Mahomes era any more than the Brady era, unless you tell me, well, in those specific head-to-head matchups, one guy utterly and completely outplayed the other. But I mean, there are a lot of, if you go back again, some of Jordan's finals series, Karl Malone had some remarkable numbers. Charles Barkley had some remarkable numbers.
Yeah, right.
But Jordan was Jordan, and he had obviously the best number 2 player in the history of the game, Scottie Pippen.
It does work in reverse, though, when you're talking about quarterbacks, because another guy who hasn't won a Super Bowl is Joe Burrow, and really hasn't done a ton besides that Super Bowl. They've had some weird years, and he's obviously had good numbers, but he's knocked off Mahomes a couple of times, right? Mm-hmm. So he gets elevated to a place, and it's deserved, by the way. I love Joe Burrow, but we talk about Joe. He has the same essential career accomplishments as a lot of these guys, besides the Super Bowl, which I know is a big one. But numbers are the same, wins are the same, the whole bit. But what has he done? He's gone into Kansas City. They called it Burrowhead for a minute, right? Because he had gone into Arrowhead and knocked off the Chiefs a couple of times. But that elevated him, like as a guy who still hasn't won a Super Bowl. People still, even this year when Kansas City was dreadful for a long time. It's Burrow, though. I don't know. Are we going to count Joe Burrow out? Then they go on a run? Well, we told you. Joe Burrow's he's going to figure out a way to do it because he has knocked off Mahomes more than these other guys have. So he gets bonus credit for it, which I think is deserved.
Let's get to a truncated prediction segment because there's no Carl Gerbschmidt today. The reasons are a bit vague and a bit mysterious. He's giving us one reason. We're not sure we're buying it, that he's sick and his voice is gone. There may be more to it. We'll try to explain that again, and then Guardsy and I will do our best to keep that award-winning prediction segment somewhat together. That's next.
40, he could go, 50, intercepted! And a touchdown to the 10, he will score!
It's time for the bumper-to-bumper award-winning NFL prediction segment on The Fan, brought to you by Continental Diamond. Now, to help you break down this week's games, here's your favorite NFL wonk, Dan Barreiro.
This might be historic. I don't recall very many, if any, occasions the last 20 years in which the award-winning prediction segment has not included Carl Gerbschmidt.
I know.
Do you remember it ever?
I know we've had to move it from time to time when he's at a conference or avoiding us, but just straight up not available. It doesn't feel good. I'm not going to lie.
He's going to be okay, right? He's going to live, right? I mean, he's claiming it's a voice issue.
Yeah.
We've been led to believe there might be some other things involved that are a little more complicated than that.
Yeah. In terms of law enforcement stuff.
How long has the historic exotic dance saloon called Shooters? How long has it been in Elk Mound, Wisconsin? How far back does Shooters go?
Well, let me see. I don't know. We've looked this place up before.
I think we have, yes. I think we there's no question we have.
It doesn't have a born-on date on the website. Shootershowgirls.com, by the way, if anybody's interested. Or maybe there is a history. Frequently asked questions. Do I dare? Oh, my God.
I can't even imagine.
No, I'm not going to. I can't read any of these.
Are they all bad?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're not bad.
Suggestive?
Like, here's one of the questions.
Okay.
I have a bachelor party coming in. How do I get my friend a stage dance? The answer is talk to a staff member.
Well, that's not that controversial.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that's... Do you offer free cover? There are a few ways. Active military. That's nice.
Should we try to get Seifert on to be Gerbschmidt? Because that's been the accusation for
years, been.
Right?
Yeah. Which makes no sense to me. That they think Kevin would be interested in that, number one.
Yeah.
Capable of that, number two. And three, have you ever been to Wisconsin?
Does any of this have anything to do with Vern being in town with his quote-unquote
office ladies?
I don't know. It just seemed, the timing in that regard seems interesting. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to make any accusations. They come to town, and it seems as if in a number of ways all hell has broken loose in Elk Mound.
Yeah, to catch people up, I think officially 5 a.m. Saturday morning, the Dunn County Sheriff's Office got phone calls of a fire from motorists on Interstate 94 that
you can see it right from there.
Showgirls was engulfed in flames. And so we got this sent to us dozens of times this week because Elk Mound is obviously where the Gerbschmidts live, and his brother Vern is in town. And I think we've nailed down pretty well what industry Vern is in.
Carl tries to say it's industrial films.
Right.
That's a kind of a, that's in quotes.
He used to just say he was in entertainment.
Yeah.
And then we kind of got him in a box.
Right.
And he's got some office ladies that are with him because they've been displaced by the fires in California, which is not good. But I just don't know. What's the old saying? We've used a couple of sayings today. When there's smoke, there's fire. That's one of them. I mean, when there's smoke, there's fire, right? There's a lot of dots to connect on this thing that I think a lot of people have connected here. So I hope that the Gerbschmidts aren't involved in it. But
we don't know.
I mean, between Randy and Vern and then obviously Carl and the office ladies, who knows exactly what's going on? Even though they do have a guy in custody, apparently. And
as far as we know, it's not Randy, right? It's not a Gerbschmidt.
No, it's not a Gerbschmidt.
But that doesn't mean there can't be some connection.
It's a guy named Colton Jansen.
Okay. And do we are police saying why they believe that, what the impetus might have been here? What was the
why he did it?
Why he did it? Are they even throwing out the motive yet?
He allegedly told deputies that strip clubs are, quote, against his beliefs.
Oh, okay.
So,
well, then then I don't think then there's any reason to believe that Randy would be implicated. He is not anti-strip club.
He'd be stopping the guy.
Vern is not anti-strip club.
No.
By any means, based on the industry he's in and made a good profit in over the decades.
So it's been kind of a weird week.
Yeah.
And then Gerby comes up MIA today with the vocal issue, apparently. So
out of nowhere.
It's too bad because I have some questions of my own. I'm sure you do too.
Oh, we have a multitude of questions, it's for sure. Shooters, you could see it from 94, right? You could see it from the highway, from the interstate. And, I mean, it was, I think it'd been there a while, and I think was fairly successful, was it not?
If it's been there a while.
We did. I mean, I know we talked about it with Carl over the years, and he kind of pretended to be bored with it, right? Because I'm going to rise above this. You're not going to bring me down into this kind of conversation. But I think as gentlemen's clubs go, it was wildly successful. Now, you're in Elk Mound. I don't know how many other options you got for gentlemen's clubs. That's what they used to be called. I don't know if they're still called that, right?
Well, yeah. Let me just read you a couple of the comments from the Facebook page, the Shooters Showgirls Facebook page.
Yeah.
And there's some pictures. Looks like a nice family atmosphere.
I bet you the wings are terrific.
I'm sure they are. Mike writes, hope you build back bigger and better. Kylie writes, build back better. Kylie writes, so sorry this happened to you folks. What a great establishment. We all hope to see Shooters again sometime.
Any chance that Bloom or any of the other Fox 9 investigators are sniffing around this story?
I saw Paul Bloom today walking out of Fox 9.
Did you? Yeah.
I failed to ask him. I just waved at him. I didn't ask him if he was on this story. But he's worked Western Wisconsin before.
Yeah, he knows it.
He knows Western Wisconsin pretty well.
Yeah.
This post from the Shooters Showgirls account. Friends and family of Shooters. We are meeting at 4:30, January 19th at Happy Hollow in Altoona. Please join us to remember the good times we have shared together.
Happy Hollow in Altoona?
Yeah.
Pennsylvania or Wisconsin?
I would assume it's near the Dells.
Yeah, Altoona.
I'm not sure. So I don't know if maybe that's where Carl lost his voice. Maybe the whole Gerbschmidts went there. That was a few days ago.
Possible.
And they're still all recovering. So, anyway.
A couple people are actually Willow, Mark Rosen's cat, suggesting that if indeed Shooters builds back better, bigger, and better that we broadcast live for a prediction segment, if not a whole show, from that location upon its shooter's triumphant return to its rightful place alongside I-94.
I'm looking at some pictures, I think, from this Happy Hollow get-together.
Is Happy Hollow the name of another gentleman's club?
No, it looks like it's just a bar.
Oh.
And it looks like, the whole Shooters gang is
They're all there,
in these pictures.
Gang's all here?
Looks like it. I don't see any Gerbschmidts, but maybe they're taking the pictures.
That's possible.
Or maybe they're not there yet.
Who's to say? All right, well,
quite a crowd.
To the Gerbschmidt fans, I apologize. If I could present him, if I could, summon him up, I would. I can't. I don't think you can either. And I'm hoping as soon as next week we can get to the bottom of what the real story is. I don't know if he's going to acknowledge it or admit to it, and then just sort of pick up the pieces. Well, it probably won't be next week, actually. It'll be the week before. It'll be 2 weeks because the Super Bowl's 2 weeks off.
Yes.
So we could also at some point just try to get him on a little bonus time to get some of these questions answered.
They had just started looking for new workers, too, so that's a bad beat for the office ladies. January 12th, they put out kind of an open audition all-call bulletin on their Facebook page. You had to be 21 plus, bring an outfit and heels.
Building described as a complete loss, thousands of single-dollar bills in damage. Thousands of single-dollar bills in damage. I went to UW Stout in the early 90s, went to Shooters then, topless only.
Yes,
that's like a lot of places, right?
They bring that up in the frequently asked questions page.
Wasn't Buns and Roses topless only?
I don't know. I don't think I ever went to Buns and Roses.
What's the one you were accused of being in?
Rick's Cabaret.
Rick's. That's topless only, correct?
I don't know. Like I told that lady that night at Tom's Watch Bar, I've never been to Rick's Cabaret. She was convinced.
I'm still not sure I buy that either.
But
it's not illegal.
No, I know. But it's one thing to say I've never been there, but she was convinced I was there on behalf of KFAN radio doing like appearances.
Well, we did a Roop Chat party there one year.
Did we? I missed that one. But that was what was bothering me. It's because, no, I wasn't there at all, number one. Number two, I wasn't there on behalf of the fan. We had like a street teamer, one of our college kids is standing there, and this woman was relentless on me. Like, oh, no, you guys, we worked with KFAN back then. Like, that had to be like 92, 93,
She wouldn't let it go, huh?
She would not. She was adamant.
Man, that's interesting.
Not only was the fan affiliated with it, but I definitely met her at Rick's Cabaret in like 1997. I said, I started working here in 03, 04, somewhere along, maybe 02. I don't even remember. And I can promise you I wasn't there. But that was a remarkable conversation I had at Tom's Watch Bar.
All right, here's the deal. Without Gerby, we're still going to go forward with the picks. Gerby was 1-3 last week. I was 2-2 last week in the divisional round. You were 3-1. So the current standings are you and I are tied at 6-4. Gerby is at 5-5. And I think we also were given the
Gerby gave us his picks.
Gerby picks, did he not, at some point? Let me see if I can find them so we're ready to go with this sort of thing. I'll tell you what. I'll go first on is this the order of the games? It is. Eagles first, right? Eagles Commanders?
1 o'clock.
So the Eagles, are they expecting more snow in Philly this week? I haven't checked the forecast.
Want me to look quick?
Yeah, why not? Eagles are favored by 6.5 over the upstart coming out of nowhere, Washington Commanders.
Sunday, by the way, before you pick, cloudy, then mostly sunny with a high near 41. Should be idyllic.
So a lot better than it was for the Rams game.
Yes, exactly.
Which the weather was a factor. And I enjoyed that, by the way. I loved that it was a factor. I think a lot of people are saying don't bite on the Commanders, that this is a great, cute story, but it has its limits, and this is going to be the week they're exposed a little bit. My counter to that is I haven't really been overwhelmed by the Eagles. They've won both games they had to win. They've made the plays they've had to make, but their offense has not thrilled me. And I'll say, even if the Eagles win, I do think that's too many points. So I'm going to take the Commanders to, at the very least, cover the 6.5. What do you got?
That's what I'm also doing, and that's part of the reason why I was 3-1 last week, because there were too many points being given out to the favorites. It wasn't because I just went underdog, although I think you and I both had the Bills to win outright, and they obviously ended up doing it. 6.5 to me in a divisional game and a title game, it does feel like a few too many, especially like you said, because Philly is kind of meandered.
And a quarterback with a bulky knee.
That's true.
Who's going to wear a brace.
That's true.
Yep.
And how can you not be impressed with what Washington did a week ago? They're obviously feeling good. They're obviously playing well. And they, I think, can be loosey-goosey, right? They don't have the pressure that Philadelphia does. So I'm going to take the Commanders to cover. I'd love it if they'd win because you know how I feel about Philly. I'd love it if they win, but I feel like that might be too tall a task, but I think it's going to be a close game.
The other thing that strikes me is we're all looking for these lessons about, well, if you have some young quarterback you're trying to get the most out of and you have a head coaching job open, you have to give the job to an offensive mind. Look at the way the Commanders did it.
Not so fast, my friend.
Their guy is a defensive genius, right?
Dan Quinn.
But what he did was he went out and he hired a big-time offensive coordinator, Cliff Kingsbury, correct? So, again, you can get the job. The notion that there's only one way to do it offensively, if you're trying to nurture and develop a young quarterback, is nonsense. It can be a defensive head coach if you have a legitimate offensive mind that quarterback can lean on as well. By the way, for the record, Gerby is taking the Eagles to cover. He is taking the Eagles to cover.
By the way, I don't know if this makes you change your pick, but somebody just sent this to both of us on Twitter. It's from the Barstool Philly account. Some Washington Commander fans have decorated the Rocky statue with a bunch of Commander stuff on it.
Oh, no.
Much like Vikings fans did back in January of 2018. And as I retweeted, that usually doesn't end well.
Oh.
The Rocky gods, the Stallone gods somehow trump the football gods, and that doesn't usually end well.
Well, who was it? Who was the Ram defense? Was it Verse who hammered? He's probably your hero. Hammered the Eagles fans and refused to apologize for it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, he went nuts, ripping before the game. And in fact, even his head coach then said it was given the chance. Hey, do you think he's going too far? And he's like, no, he's my guy. I'm not going to mess with him. I like that he didn't back away from it because here's the problem with the theory that, you're really going to piss off Eagles fans. They're going to be crazier than ever. They can't get any more ornery or crazy than they are. No. It's a distinction without a difference.
It's true.
And I don't think that's why ultimately the Rams lost. That was a competitive game. Rams had a chance down the stretch. Verse was brilliant. So, no, I'm glad Verse didn't do the Sirwanga backpedal after the initial comment that he made. The second game, then, of course, AFC title game, Kansas City hosting Buffalo. We've been here before. The Chiefs are favored by 2.5 points. We'll have you go first on this one.
It feels like a cop-out, and I probably said it last year.
Can't say no to Kansas City.
And I probably said it the year before.
Yeah, I can't blame
probably
you.
said it the year before. I'll tell you, I want the Bills to win, and it's not because I'm down on the Chiefs. It's not because I have Chiefs fatigue. It's not because I don't want to see Taylor Swift and potentially Caitlin Clark now in a suite watching the Chiefs in the Super Bowl in New Orleans. I'm a Josh Allen guy. I like the way Buffalo has put themselves together.
Yeah,
they trade Diggs, right? They get rid of Stephon Diggs and are, speaking of building back better, still finding a way. I'd love this to be Josh Allen's time. I don't think it's going to be, though. Until proven otherwise, I think you can take that cop-out. Until proven otherwise, that someone's going to go in there, and I mentioned it, Burrow's done it, obviously Brady did it. It takes a lot to go into Arrowhead and knock out the Chiefs this time of year. They just figure out a way to do it. Kelsey becomes a new person. Their defense starts playing well again. So I'm taking the Chiefs. I think it'll be about a field goal game, so I do think they will cover that 2.5.
I can't blame you for making that pick. I can't be offended by anybody who's going to stick with Kansas City. I have a hunch it is going to end this time for Kansas City, and that Buffalo will be the team to do it. I do believe Josh Allen is going to outplay Patrick Mahomes in this game. I really do. I think he's in a different place. I think one of the reasons I think they're a little different is I think they've come to sort of accept and not run from. They're no longer in the mode of we got to protect Josh Allen. They've made Josh Allen a runner in this offense, and I don't think Kansas City's going to handle that very well. I really don't. I think his legs might well be the difference in the ball game. So I will take Buffalo to unseat the Kansas City Chiefs. Gerby in that game looks like he also picks the Bills.
He does.
To get it done. Kansas City favored by 2.5 points.
Did you see the breaking Supreme Court news in Minnesota?
No, do we have, on the question
quorum.
of quorum?
Yes.
What's their conclusion?
They rule that a quorum in the House is 68 members, siding with the DFL in a decision that effectively shuts down the House Republicans from being able to operate in the chamber during the DFL boycott. That from Danny Spiewak, KARE 11.
Huge deal.
So after we both said on Enough Said tonight, Democrats, it's time to get to work. The Supreme Court is going, yeah, but you don't have to.
Really have to get to work.
Yeah.
Now they have their out.
Yep, you don't have the quorum.
Interesting.
So the second topic of the show tonight might be a little dated, but that's all good.
So the question is this because I think one of the debates too was, well, they can do it, they can make the ruling, but is this binding?
Good question.
I don't know that it necessarily is. My guess is the Republicans are going to say, well, it's an interesting ruling.
Thank you for your time.
We respect it. Thank you for your time. But we're going to do what we think we have to do. So to a certain extent, we're not out of the mess. We're not out of the morass at all. But we do have the highest court of the land. When I say land in the state of Minnesota, does make the decision, and I think people did expect it was going to come down this afternoon. Right? Everybody said this can be quick. The hearing was yesterday, right?
Yes, it was,
and that indeed this was going to happen. So there's your breaking news as well. 612 guy writes, as long as the refs don't call every stinking penalty on Mr. Mahomes sliding at the last minute or tiptoeing out of bounds, somebody needs to hit his blank before he's out of bounds to teach him a lesson. Getting old, the refs baby him all the time. Yeah, there's a lot of bitterness about that right now. Mahomes even acknowledged some of it. We spent a lot of time on it. I did. I believe, was it Sunday? Was it on when was that game played? Saturday?
Yes, you would have
so
talked about it
on sermons. And then we've talked about it intermittently throughout the week, including with Seifert and Sean Salisbury. It may come up with Ben Gessling at 4:30 as well. So huge ruling in the state of Minnesota for sure. Gessling, I mentioned 4:30. Lavelle at 5:30. We added to the list because of the breaking news yesterday. Gerald Posner, award-winning investigative reporter and author who's been on with us many, many, many times over the decades. And the news broke yesterday that President Trump said, look, we're going to release all the remaining files, even those that were never supposed to be released before, on the JFK assassination, the MLK assassination, and the RFK assassination. That process has begun. How long that'll take? Well, we're going to find out from our next guest, because Gerald Posner, of course, has written on these stories forever. And I know has already, I think, done some perusing and also some predicting about what we're likely to learn from whatever has not previously been released. And we'll ask him the key question. Let's face it. The key question is, will there be a new element either for the conspiracy theorists or the non-conspiracy theorists introduced into any of these stories in a way that dramatically changes the average view on who was responsible for each of those crimes, right? That's what we're looking for. We're looking for some nugget, something that was being suppressed that changes all previous theories that we've had on any of these particular issues, correct?
To bring it full circle to how we started this segment, the arson at Shooters. We were wondering how long it had been around. A program source has texted me, Shooters has been around for at least 45 years, a couple of name changes. So it's gone through.
Somebody who apparently knows.
Evidently.
Okay.
Yeah, I will not.
You're not going to out that individual?
No, I don't think he or she would mind, but it's funny nonetheless.